Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to episode number 14 in our All of Fabric modded Minecraft series. I have a few things to show you today that I did in between the episodes. Let's make it daytime first. First things first is food. While I'm around the base and I'm just tinkering around, I just use this everlasting beef that I got out of a chest. It gives you 2 or 1.5 hunger bars back. Very little saturation, so you have to use it often, but it lasts forever, so it's free. Problem is it has a cooldown, so I can't just spam it when I'm out in the world. I need actual food. So I wanted to make some cabbage rolls, so I did some cabbage over here, just using some bone meal to grow it. When I get extra seeds, I throw them in here and I get extra bone meal back. Let's see, let's make some bone meal so we can make some and get here together. So the cabbage I get there, I just throw the seeds in here, they get composted back into bone meal. So then to make cabbage rolls, I also need some minced beef. We'll make some of that here too. So basically, I need an open hand to get that knife back. Cabbage we just chop up with the knife. Beef we chop up with the knife, and then the minced beef and the cabbage leaf go in the cooking pot. This recipe doesn't use a bowl, so it won't consume it. It'll just give us the cabbage rolls. They give us 3 hunger bars, 3 saturations, so they're not super great, but we can use them while we're out and about and spam them when we need to. So it's something new to add to our cooking list. We will start getting some of these automated so we can keep them stocked in our system so we don't have to keep cooking them every time. But right now I'm just enjoying using the cooking process here. I think it's pretty neat. To facilitate all this, I installed a crafting terminal. I just ran a cable. It runs underground here from our main base over there, and then I put some cable facades to make it so it's hidden inside the pillar, and the cable runs all the way down here through this tunnel I made, and it connects up to our other line. That's the line that went to our blacksmithing forge, and this is the one that comes to our main base here. I did do some other changes to our ME system up top as well. I'll show you those quickly. I have a line that runs over to our modern industrialization area to do some automation. And since we're using more channels than we needed, or than we had, I made a controller and I connected up our dense cable so we can now have 32 channels. So we have 1 going over here. We have 4 going over there, and I don't know if I have a smart cable here to look. I do. If you look up there, we have 3 channels coming out the bottom, which means we're using a total of 8 channels right now, but they're split, so I can add more on here. I'm just using Fluix glass cables to do the main span of it because I don't need to be able to see it. All I need is smart cables on the ends where I need to see how many channels are coming out, because that's the smart cable is much more expensive than the Fluix cable. Over here, I have a storage bus connected to our danks. Our danks we made some docks for them. Those were just a simple matter of making black concrete and shaping them up. What my plan is with the danks is to use them to connect to our storage system. So if you see the one that's here in the dank, or in the dock, I'm sorry, the dank that's there is blocks. This one is also blocks, same ID, same matching inventory. So while this is in here connected to the storage bus, our storage system can see what's in the dank, and it's in here. So if we look at the spruce logs, we have 186. So I'm going to pull out a stack. We have 122. So now if I look in our system, we have 122. If I pull out 64 more, and I look in here, we're down to the 58. And if I look in here, that's how many we have as well. So if I put some of these on the ground and let them get picked up by my dank, I have 90 in here. They went into here, and they also got stored in here, which means they're not using up hard drive space. I can also put them directly in here if I wanted to. Same thing. Or I can put them in through any of my ME terminals. They all get stored inside the dank, so I have them for access while I'm out building. And they get stored in our ME system in this copy of the dank. So I'm doing the same one thing here for our ores. And so the way it works is you take one, you have the dank, you put it in there, you shift right click with this red print. And if you see here, it picked up the frequency of 0 from that one, picked up frequency of 1 from this one. If we then take the ores one here, and in our inventory we were to right click it, it would, if that was a different frequency, it would have changed it. If you want to make it so that you can't change that, once you're done making the changes, you just lock the frequency. So what we need to do next is hook up a storage bus to the back of that dank as well. So we're going to get storage bus recipe here, and we're going to craft an interface. For the interface, we're missing iron. I have some iron cooking up for this. Oh, I also made a new bridge here so that I didn't fall down. I'm slowly changing up the look of this stairwell, and I'm going to be changing up the decorations in here a little bit. Like I said, this is an industrial area. I kind of want it to be all stone brick mostly. So, okay, there's my iron. So if we throw that in here, interface, craft an interface, make a storage bus. We'll go back over to our dank docks. Say that 3 times fast. And we will connect that here, which means we need a smart cable. And now this storage bus will connect. We'll go from 1 to 2 channels. And this storage bus has now connected that dank to our storage network. So now all the ores that are stored in here show up in here. And we can do the same thing. We take them out, they'll come out of our dank, we put them back in, they'll go into our dank. The next step in what I'm doing with that is that I have connected exporters and importers over here, and I just did a small scale test to get it set up. So I have an exporter that is exporting deep slate and regular iron ore, and then lignite and regular coal ore, and then deep slate redstone ore, and then all of those get broken down into raw iron, crushed coal dust, lignite coal dust, and redstone crushed dust, so they also get exported. So anytime those things show up in the system, they get exported. I have a cable out here that connects to a macerator, and those things go through the macerator. They go back out into this barrel, and then the importer pulls them back into the system. In the case of the iron, raw iron, as soon as it gets processed, it gets put back in here to get processed again. And so basically, any iron that I'm mining comes into that system and then gets processed automatically into iron. Same with redstone, same with coal. And so that's why I have 1,000 redstone in my system. Problem I need to fix with it is that it pulls out all of it, which means if I'm out mining, the idea is I want this to continue processing my ores while I'm mining. So I get iron ore, it automatically goes in and it keeps processing while I'm doing the mining. And I'll set it up for all of them eventually. But the problem is it pulls all of them out. So I think what I'm going to have to do is set up this exporter to have a level emitter, and it will only export from the system if there's 2 or more. And if there's only 1, it'll leave it in the system. That way, my dank will keep the items in it that I want, so that I don't accidentally use them. I had thought that since I had this locked, it wouldn't pull the last one out, but the ME system does. So this is going to need to get changed up just a little bit so that that is fixed. And then we will have a automatic ore processing system for the basic parts of it. As we get farther into modern industrialization, we'll get even farther into that and do more. But that is what we're working on right now, so that when we're mining, we can come back and have stuff already processing. We won't need to sort it out and process it on our own. So I had wondered if the nightmare was always kind of sad and skulking, or if it was because of the rain. This answers my question. Not raining. And he's still walking around like somebody just peed in his Cheerios. Let me see what I can use these for. Make coffins. To make braziers. Doesn't look like much else. These have use? Nope. Well, back to mining. I've done a little work getting our ore processing figured out behind the scenes. I made this basement below our modern industrialization area so we have some space to work in it. And I ran a cable down from the top for our applied energistic system. So this is right beneath our little room here. So I removed all of that back here and I moved it down to here basically. So what the way this works is there's an export bus for iron ore here as an example with a redstone card, and it is set to active with signal. Above that card there is a level emitter that emits a redstone signal when it detects that the system has more than 2 iron ore, or 2 or more iron ore. So, in here, let me grab this iron ore back. If I pick up iron ore off the ground while I'm mining, or however I pick them up, they're going to go into the dank. Now the dank has 3. You notice it goes from 3 down to 1. That's because this system has exported them. Let's do it again while we're watching the redstone. So I put them in there. Immediately the redstone turns on. It starts exporting. As soon as it gets down to 1, it stops exporting. Now the advantage to this is the level emitter doesn't take any additional channels. So it's just a little extra construction. So we only have 1 channel for the export bus. The downside is that because we're using a level emitter to turn the export bus on and off, we can only do 1 ore per export bus. So seeing as I have probably 32 or so exports that I'm going to want to do, I'm going to have to run a dense cable over here and add a bunch of extra channels. Not a big deal, just kind of annoying. As far as the next step, instead of exporting the raw iron, let's say, after it gets processed by the macerator, I will set up some automation here so that it doesn't go back into the system until it's done with all of its processing. Also, instead of having one macerator for every task, like if this is copper, I'm not going to set up a second macerator. I'm just going to have all of them piped into this macerator, which will power with steam, and it will process all the different ores. It'll do them one at a time until it runs through all of them, but that's fine. I don't need it to be super fast. I can always speed it up later. I just need it to process the stuff. So I'm going to have to go through for each ore that I have in the dank, determine which ones I want to process through the macerator, set up the channels for it, and then set up the next step for it. So for example, most ores are going to be like iron ore. When I process them through a macerator, I'm going to get raw iron, which I'm going to want to process again. So I'll have to figure out how I'm going to set that up so that it goes back through the macerator. Probably I'll have this export to a barrel that'll get put back through it again, but we'll have to figure out a way to filter it. I may just make it so that there's a barrel for the output and then have another macerator that runs it again, and then I can separate it by having all the things that have a secondary process like that in this system, and if they don't, I'll make another system. I'm not sure. We'll figure that out as we go. For now, we're just going to slowly get each one that we need set up. So my next step will be repeating this process for coal, for redstone, so that I can have iron, coal, redstone. I guess my next one would probably be gold. But we can just continue to add them as we need them to be automated. And the ones where we don't use them as often, we can process manually upstairs using our macerator that's connected to this system. I made a very complicated system. Want to show it off. So, I know I was talking about iron and gold and that stuff. I decided the more important thing for me to automate was coal. And that's because coal is what powers my mining drill. So, export buses for coal ore and lignite coal ore with the same automation to keep it so that there's one of each. Where's my ores? So one of each stays in here. Everything else is in these barrels. I don't know if there's any left. That goes into this macerator, which the steam processes into crushed dust, which goes into this macerator, which gets processed into coal dust, lignite coal dust, and sulfur. The coal dust and the lignite coal dust go through here in the compressor, which compresses them into lignite coal and coal. Sulfur gets pulled out through this whitelisted filter and dropped off into this barrel, and then everything gets imported back in. So total, some steam, 3 channels on my ME system, and any coal ore that I mine with my mining drill automatically goes into my system for into the ME system for me to use later. The next thing I want to do is set up another dank for items that I want to have handy, basically. So I'm going to set up a dank that's stored in here that has coal and lignite coal stored in the dank. And then that way I can grab stuff from my ME system while I'm down in the mines. Theoretically, that means as long as I have water, I can mine forever. And I can just keep working on getting our dank organized so that all of these slots have automatic processing, and I'll just do them as I need them. So I will set up another system that uses a slightly different setup. Let's go back down here to look at it. So whereas the coal and the lignite coal are processed using a macerator and then a macerator and then a compressor, if we look at, let's say, iron ore, because that'll be the next one I do. When we process iron ore, we want it to run through a macerator to get to iron clumps or raw iron. Then we use the raw iron through a macerator again to get iron dust. And then we want to process the iron dust through a furnace. But I'm not sure if I want to process it straight into iron ingots or into dust. I think I'm going to process it right into iron ingots, because iron ingots is what I'm going to use most commonly. I can then use the manual macerator to get back to iron dust when I need to make alloys. But so that's what the next setup's going to be. And instead of complicating this by having filters that pull this out from here and send it off to another system, I'm just going to build another one of these that goes over here and has ores in it, and then I'll have 2 macerators and a furnace. And I may change up the way this is laid out to make it a little more compact, make it go vertical a little bit. And the other thing is I want to make sure that I have space where I can add more, because there may be other things that get processed in the same way as the coal. Come to think of it, redstone is one of those, so I could put that one here, and the redstone ore, let's check that out together. So when I process redstone ore, it gets used through a macerator, and then the crushed dust goes through another macerator, but then it goes directly to redstone dust. And so I don't have another process for it. But I could still set that up right here in this system, because then I could just put the redstone dust in this filter and have it get imported right back in. So that's probably what I will do. I will set it up redstone dust and deep slate redstone dust, or redstone ore, I mean. And those will get processed through this system. But so now it's just a matter of slowly going through and making it so that all the things that I mine get automatically processed. And once I'm done with doing that, that means that all I have to do is go down and mine. My void dank will pick up any stone and deep slate that's in the way and void them automatically. My ore dank will pick up all the ores, and then they will automatically start processing for me while I'm mining, and I can keep on going. And so I can just mine for as long as I feel like mining. I set up a couple more things. One, I set up the barrels that I was talking about over here. This is already becoming a spaghetti mess, and I love it. It's great. I set up barrels for redstone and deep slate redstone ore. I also set up one for iron ore and gold ore. I set up 2 macerators and a furnace so that when I get iron and gold ore, they can go in and get processed. The problem is, I don't have any iron ore, I don't have any gold ore. Oh, I do have iron ore. I don't have any gold ore, I don't have any redstone or deep slate redstone ore. So, I gotta go mine for some. But I can set up the iron so you can see how it all works. So, first things first, I'm going to set the level emitter. So this goes in, and it goes to 2. Which means it's off because there's not 2 in the system. This gets set to export iron ore. And now all I should have to do is put the iron ore right here. It got pulled out. It should go into here, which is exactly what I wanted. It'll turn into raw iron. Raw iron gets pulled into here, which then gets pulled into here. The iron dust goes into here, which then goes into here. As it turns into iron ingots, I have it going all the way up over here, and I ran it above because I know I'm going to want to go underneath here later. I'm probably going to end up moving this barrel so I have more space over on this side. But it automatically goes into this barrel, which automatically gets imported into the system. I did it this way so that I could save a channel, because I don't need 2 import buses. I can have both of these things processing into the same import. So now all I have to do is get gold ore and redstone and deep slate redstone ore. I can put them in the filters and they'll get processed. As far as other ores that I want to process go, I can, see if I can get up here to do it. I can continue expanding this out, because I can connect more pipe and just disconnect them so they don't connect to these items. And I can expand this as far as it needs to go. I'll just have to keep adding more channels, which is fine. So I'm going to go do some mining, and I'm going to... Ooh, wait, why did this pull out my other iron? I had an iron ore there, and I don't now. That's not right. Let me go check our system up here. But I'm going to go do some mining. I'm going to get some redstone ore. I'm going to get some deep slate redstone ore. I'm going to get some gold ore, and I'm going to get this set up. Maybe I have ore in here that wasn't in the tank. No, it just pulled it through. So let me check this setup again. So the redstone here. Oh, I never put in the redstone cards, so it never turned off. That was my own fault. So redstone cards are just expansion cards for the export buses from Applied Energistics. And what they do is just make it so that you can toggle how that export bus reacts to a redstone signal. The redstone signal for us is coming from the level limiter. You could also make it so there was a switch. So say you wanted to set up an export bus that just had a switch where it turned on when you turned the switch on manually, you could do that. But this is how I'm doing it. So we want this set so that it's active with a signal. Oh, this is just active because I haven't set anything on it, because the export bus doesn't have anything on it. Which means nothing should be going in here. Okay. So we're going to go do some mining, get those things we need, and we'll get that set up so that we have our automatic processing of ores and minerals, basically. And that'll be great. Now we can have things automatically going through. One thing I do want to do, since I have a whole bunch of it in here that I'd already processed, is I want to pull out this iron dust that we've already handled. Let's throw some of this stuff in here just to get rid of it. And we're going to take this down and drop it off in the barrel where the iron dust would export from the system into here. And we'll just let this macerator or this furnace do its job. It'll process through the backlog of iron dust while we're off mining. So that's going to be our setup for the mining for now. I know that there are more advanced systems where we can end up getting more from each of these dusts, but for now we have automatic ore processing, which is pretty great. So I'm going to call it there for today's episode. Running a little long already as it is. I hope you enjoyed watching. I know it was a lot of complicated stuff, but hopefully I did make a little bit of sense out of it for you guys. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.